Welcome, welcome. Today is May 15th. That is just so easy for me to remember. I'm not sure why, but it really is. So we are happy to be here today. We are doing easy jackets. No, they're not easy. We're doing summer jackets. Summer jackets, because some are not easy. They're all easy. You know, I decided when I was sewing that jackets are like life. Should we get this philosophical, or should we just scrap that portion? In that jackets sometimes, you know, you can't rush things in life. Sometimes you can't rush jackets. Jackets just, some of them take time. And they're better when you just enjoy the process rather than trying to get to the destination. I think that's my little lesson today. But they're so beautiful. I had so much fun. I purposely made summer jackets as a title because I really wanted to push myself to make some new jackets. And I did. And I loved them all, and I would wear them all. And I'm going to wear them all, and you will see them all as I travel around. But it was really fun. It's a really fun process. If you go by jackets, and the definition of jackets is something that's worn over something else and has buttons up the front. That's a pretty lame definition for jackets. So we're going to get a little more specific. But even before we do that, we're going to give everybody a chance to do questions, answer. That's our traditional format. We'll do a little question, answer. So we will have questions, answer. That's if you have questions. If you now know everything that I know, we won't have any questions. And that's okay too. All right, you guys. Summer jackets in the heat of summer? Yeah, that's a good question. You know why I wear jackets in the summer? Because every place, again, this is Dallas, Texas, and it's like really nice outside. But, you know, you have to run the air conditioner because the air conditioner dehumidifies. And every place I go in the summer, I don't care how beautiful it is outside, it's freaking freezing inside. It is so cold that I can't like wear the same thing outside that I can inside. It's ridiculous. So I wear jackets all year long. But I see a lot of women do, a lot of people do, simply because they're necessary. They're necessary to look good for business. They're necessary for many reasons, but also because it's cold. So I clearly named it summer jackets because I wanted you to see what you could do in the summer and all the options. There's so many great options for jackets. And I wanted you to see that. So I'm glad you asked that question. Summer jackets in the summer. Why would we wear a jacket in the summer? Stay tuned. You'll learn why. Dear Peggy, I have 2750 and want to buy 2010. But I would like to know what the difference is between these patterns. Well, there are a lot of differences. 2750 is for a woven. 2010 is a knit. 2050 has a zipper opening, 2010 does not. 2050 has a yoke. 2750 is Amy's skirt, just for those of you who are watching, and 2010 is the yoga skirt. I mean, the only thing that's similar is that they're both skirts. But how you get them on, the fabric they're made out of, the fullness at the bottom, all of those have differences. Is that good? Does that help? Can 4,000 be made into woven if I go up a side? Hey, you guys, you know, I get that question a lot. I'm going to answer this question in a minute, but it brought to mind a lot of times in emails, you guys, can I do this? Can I do this? You can do anything you want. It's just, I think what you're really asking is, will I be successful if I do this? Okay, so, I can't remember where I was last workshop. I remember I was in Portland, and we just had some really fun discussions, which is why I do the workshops, because you guys are really fun. And you said to me, the ladies in the workshop said, we need to hear it like more times, more. So I get it. I'm going to keep saying it more times. 4,000. Can I do it in a woven? Two things you have to remember when you do something that's in a knit pattern and you want to do it in a woven. So the first thing you have to think about is, how am I going to get it off and on? So I'm going to specifically talk about 4,000. It's called the swing dress. that neckline is wide enough, even if it were in a woven, I could get it off and on. The second thing you have to worry about is how am I going to move? So because sleeves are smaller in a knit, the circumference is negative ease in a knit, all of those things, if you did that in a woven, you couldn't literally get it on, and you couldn't literally move even if you could get it on. So you have to ask yourself, how am I going to move? Should I go up a size? And I have to stop saying a size. I have to stop saying go up in size, because literally some of you have taken me literally and you've gone down one size. I say go down a size, and you've gone down one size, and then you tell me it's my fault because it didn't work. Okay, everything's my fault. It's okay, but go down in size. Go down in your circumference. It's probably a clearer way to say that. So when you go from 4,000, go up to a woven, you need to increase your circumference. However, the other thing I think you should take in mind is that 4,000 was made for a knit. It was made for negative ease. If you take away that and do it in a woven, then be careful you don't look like a Dolly Parton in a muumuu or a pillowcase. You know, there's no shaping done to that because it's meant to be in a knit. And so, you know, could you put a belt in it? Could you do darts? Could you do all those things? Yes. So see, sometimes when you ask a question, can I do 4,000 in a woven? Do I answer yes? Or do I go through all the variables that I think you should consider? And that's always my catch-22 with emails. For many of you, some of you, there's emails that I've not answered because I took the weekend off. It was Mother's Day. But those emails are just piling up, and I will get to them. Don't send them again. I didn't forget you, and I didn't delete them, and I didn't not answer. I just haven't gotten to them. Today was a little crazier than norm, so I will get there. All right, so you all have to help me out. Do you want a short answer or a long answer? And you guys can be the judge. So sometimes you can send me an email that says, I want a long answer for this. I want a short answer for this. All right. Hi from Arizona. Hi. Is 100 the same base as 600? It is. 100 is Eileen's pocket blouse. It's the pattern of the month, which we're sold out of. We're not reprinting. We've discontinued it. We're done. And it's the same base as 600, which is called the classic blouse. Yes. What do you do for someone who wears an A cup? An A cup, I probably should repackage this. I probably should just say AB, because blouse cup sizing and bra cup sizing are not the same. So you don't need an A cup. There's just not... Cup sizing in a blouse is done the base of the neck to the waist and the shoulder to the waist. There's not enough difference. And B cup and A cup is the same. So I know it's not the same in a bra. I got that. But in a blouse, it's not going to make any difference. So if you are an A cup, you can use the B cup if you're okay with that, and it will work really nicely. All right? Is the box of sewing machine needles that you sell good for both knits and woven fabric and most thicknesses of fabric? Yes. Did you want the short answer or the long answer? Yes is the short answer. I use one needle. On every fabric I sew, I use one needle. And that is that little box of needles that I sell. That's the only needle I buy. I don't change out needles for fabrics. I cannot comprehend how a different needle will make a difference on a different fabric. Needles are sharp, they go through, they come back out. I can't understand how different that I can't comprehend that. But that's me talking, okay? I know in the industry they use one needle. They don't use a whole bunch of different kinds of needles. So I only use one needle. When it breaks, I replace it. So all the different fabrics that are here that are all one needle. Hi, I'm working on the tank top and I have a gapping near the armhole. Should I pinch out the excess and take it off the pattern? Or do I make the dart bigger and sew a bigger dart? Whenever you have an excess at the armhole, which is common, it's the fault of two things. Number one, the shoulder angle. You didn't mention the shoulder in those answers, so you should check the shoulder. Because if the shoulder is more square than the body, then the extra fabric will gap down at the base of the armhole, at the curve of that armhole. So check that, and then if that is correct and you still have the gaping, then you need to make the dart larger. Go to the larger cup size. They're in there for you. Okay? Don't pinch the dart out and pivot it unless, that's just too much work. A, shoulder, B, dart. Peggy, love what you are wearing. Can you tell us about it? I did it in a webcast a couple times ago, but I don't remember. I mean, it's a fabric we have, and it's, a neck piece we have, but I can't remember how many webcasts ago, or what the topic was. I don't know how y'all expect to remember all this. I mean, I'm looking forward. I'm doing 6 months ahead. I can't remember 2 weeks behind. Can I fit the tissue to my body? Because I'm in such a smart aleck mood. I hope you really will, forgive me for these answers. Can I fit the tissue to my body? Of course you can fit the tissue to your body, but if you want the garment to fit, I would not use tissue fitting. Tissue fitting, I mean, I understand it's a concept out there and it's taught. I don't know how in my wildest could you think that, and I'm not saying you, don't get me wrong, but how you all think that could possibly work. Like tissue doesn't drape, tissue doesn't have ease, tissue, how I don't know how that possibly could even be a concept that somebody created. And it's more work than just make up a muslin. Just throw together a muslin and then put the muslin on, and then that's a real valid test to me. That's just much more valid. But can you get the tissue to fit? I mean, it's your deal. Do I believe in tissue fitting? Absolutely not. I have not been in one design house that tissue fits. Never seen. First off, they don't even have tissue. Okay, they use tag board and paper, but it doesn't exist. If it was a good thing, you would see it in the industry. You don't see it in the industry, and that's one of the things that we see in home sewing that just drives me nuts. But I think that's too much opinion. Okay, so the fabric that I'm wearing is called the Best Black Border Cotton Knit. What's the number on that? 1231. And I'm trying to remember what the webcast was, where it was on the mannequin. I had it on the mannequin. But just look in the webcast. Again, the webcast, if you go into our main page, over to the right it says view our previous webcast. If you click on that, up comes a page of all the webcast by date order. And if you go back maybe in February or March, maybe March, this is May already, middle of May. That's like so weird. But anyway, it was on a mannequin, and I was showing you how to, I don't remember the lesson. I just use unique fabrics, I think, is what I was trying to show you how to do. But anyway, I love the shirt. I love the shirt. It's comfortable. It's great. But I don't remember which one it was. Just go back a couple webcasts. Brett's fervently trying over here to find it for us. What DVDs or what DVDs or webinars cover sleeve, cuffs, and plackets? Hey, you guys, I have a standard answer that they're free. We don't index them, okay? They're free. You have to find them. If you go to our YouTube page, and there's a search there, and the YouTube page, we've done tie interfacing, we've done set-in sleeves. If you put videos according to category, then it puts them into the category as to what they are. So see, that's why I say we should stop. We should stop doing these, because there's so much information out there that you can't even find the information. So we're not going to stop doing them. I enjoy doing them, but you guys don't ask us where stuff is, because I just spent, it's either your time or my time. I either have to look for it or you have to look for it. So we're not going to index them. Again, it's just too much time and energy involved. They are free. There's no charge for them. You guys have to spend your time finding them. But just, even if you Google, like in all of YouTube, if you just go to YouTube and Google sleeve plackets, silhouette patterns will come up under sleeve plackets. If you go back to the webcast that we've done, like the sew-alongs, we've only done a couple. And the reason we've only done a couple, because I don't want to get those are like main sewing things, and I don't want to get so many of those that they become less meaningful. So when I did a jacket, I set in a sleeve with tie interfacing the whole thing so you could see all that. When we did the jean jacket I think we did that in a leather jean jacket, we did it in December for the Toys for Tots. We did a placket. We did all that. So it's all there. I don't know where it is, but again, it's in date order on our website, and then in YouTube, you can search it in YouTube. And we usually put up those tags, meta tags, I think they're called. Is that right? Yeah, so that you can find it. But y'all have to stop asking me to find stuff, because I don't have time to find all this stuff for you guys. You guys have to find it yourself. All right, when you sewed the pocket on 114, did you turn under the edge and stitch, or left the edge raw? 114, the one I just did, I turned the edges under. So when you're doing, it's the one that the pocket goes all the way up front. When you're doing those sides, I turned those under and stitched, and then I turned them under all the way around and stitched. But depending on your fabric, you could do it either way. It doesn't make a difference. So again, when the answers are style, I think you guys should think about what you want rather than what I did. It doesn't really matter to me, maybe it does to you guys, how I did it, because it's such a small detail, whether it's a raw edge or a turned under edge on that pocket. You're not going to really see that anyway. That's not going to make or break the garment. And so I think on those type of things, y'all should just think about, what do I want to do? And then just do it the way that you like it, or the way the fabric that you're using warrants. Okay? I mean, you don't want to be like me anyway. I had to pinch 1 whole inch at shoulder in dress 4000. I had to pinch at the shoulder seam. Okay, at the shoulder seam in the dress 4000. So should I lower the armhole by 1 inch? Short answer is yes. Long answer is, as long as you're, what size knit armhole do you like? See how there's always 2 answers, you guys? And I don't know which answer you want. So sometimes it's hard for me to answer the short answer when I feel like I should show you the difference. If I want a 20-inch armhole in a knit, and this is kind of why I really want you guys to learn your armholes, why I keep saying that. Let's just say I want a 20-inch armhole in the knit. And so I pinch out an inch at the shoulder, and I end up with a 20-inch armhole. Should I then lower the armhole? No, I shouldn't. If you feel like you trust the pattern and you want to do exactly as the pattern, then yes, if you pinch that up, you should lower the armhole by 1 inch. In theory, I think what you're asking is, if you take it up there, should you lower the armhole? The answer is yes. But again, it goes back to what's my net result and what do I want in the armhole. Okay? I'm so confused. Is there a substitute for this month's sold out pattern, or do we just miss that pattern boat? You just missed that pattern boat. The boat is gone. You guys, we are growing, which is yay, we're growing. We're growing. Oh my gosh, we're growing. So it's like absolutely ridiculously impossible. We are not able to predict this. So we went back the month before. There was plenty of patterns. We had the pattern of the month, the beginning of the month. We sold so many of the patterns, I knew we were going to run out. And so in the first week, so I didn't know what to do. It was not a pattern that we were going to reprint. And so we just decided we missed the pattern boat. It's on its way to, it left the shore. I'm sorry. All right. So the good news is, if you think you're going to like the pattern, I know y'all say, well, we want to wait and see what you do with it. I promise you, if I brought a pattern into the line, it's a good pattern, and I'm going to show you great stuff to do with it. But with 100, I got a little carried away, and it was so good that everybody wanted the pattern, so we just don't have it anymore. Okay, let's do jackets. Can we do jackets? There's so many things I want to talk about with jackets. Number one, because I love them, and women have said to me so many times, I can't even count it, well, I retired, I don't wear jackets anymore. And I feel a little sadness when I hear that, because it's just such a misunderstanding of what jackets are and what they do for us. And so I wanted to do this so that I could really kind of get a greater understanding of what jackets are. First off, they're our most flattering garment that we can put on our bodies, other than the sheath dress. Right after the sheath dress comes the jacket. And the reason being is because they add balance to the top of our body. As women, most of us gain weight in the bottom half of our body, and so those jackets add balance to the top part of our body. And they really just, I have this theory that you'll never be asked for ID when you write a check at the grocery store if you have a jacket on. It's a very trusting look. But for truly, they're just a great presentation. They're a great look. So it's difficult for me to associate them with work. That's not to say I know women who work wear jackets to work. I got that. When I was in 7th grade, and that was in, I don't remember, a lot of years ago, maybe 1970, something like that. Early 70s. I remember clearly women started wearing jackets more and more and more. Prior to that time, women didn't wear jackets. Jackets were men's clothing. So the whole movement was headed toward, it's taken us a long time, but equal rights, equal pay, women wearing jackets, all this stuff. And women were wearing jackets. And I clearly remember thinking to myself, I will never wear those jackets. They're the most ugly. They look like men. They just look like women with men's clothes on. And in the beginning, to me, I swore off that, even at that young age, I'd never wear jackets. I was 13 years old. They were just horribly ugly. But I noticed, as years passed on, jackets have become absolutely beautiful, feminine, soft, even to the point where Armani in 2004, 2005, early 2000s, or late 1990s, I don't remember. Anyway, introduced a unlined jacket, an unlined jacket. And when he did, W Magazine had a big spread on the nerve of Armani to release an unlined jacket that cost just as much as a lined jacket, because for many, the perception of a lined jacket being labor intensive to construct, of course, is more expensive. But if you take away the lining, how dare you charge the same amount of money? So Armani took the wrath, and now what we see is unlined jackets everywhere. So I want to talk about jackets, but I want to talk about unlined jackets because both are such a vital role, I think, in our wardrobes. So I want to cover the gamut. I've taken and made every kind of fabric, wovens, knits, all kinds of sleeves. And so we're going to incorporate this definition of jackets that are, kind of loosely defined. We're going to hone it in a little bit. But just for the sake of argument, I do want to go back, because this original, I actually bought the original. This is not the original. This is one I made from it. I made a pattern from it. This is pattern number 1516. And it's Armani's 1516. I don't remember the name of the pattern, but anyway. So this is an unlined jacket. I offered it as a pattern with no lining because so many of our jackets, all of our jackets, or not all of them, but most of them had lining. And for me, 1560, Armani's Unlined Jacket, such a brilliant name of a pattern, such originality and such creativity. So many of you said to me, I'd like a jacket that's not lined. Would you make a pattern? And instead of just leaving out the lining in your minds, you wanted a jacket that actually was made for that. Now, in some cases, it isn't just leaving out the lining. So as I thought about that, I realized that there really was a need for an unlined jacket pattern. So mainly you could take the instructions of this and transfer them to many other patterns that you were doing. So when you're actually doing this pattern, the whole inside of this jacket, I'm going to take it off this a little bit, is taped. And you can see It's taped with a bias tape. So every seam in there is taped. Now, if you don't think that takes a whole lot more time than lining, absolutely you're wrong. So an unlined jacket, in my mind, is more work than a lined jacket in many cases. Now, again, it depends on how do I do it. Do I serge the whole thing together? But most of the jackets that you see that are high-end, I'm talking the higher-end jackets, the edges here are taped. And so that takes, you know, every seam now is sewn 3 times. It's sewn with tape on one side, tape on another side, and then the actual seam. That's a lot of time. Whereas with lining, you've only got the original jacket and the lining. So it's almost 1/3 as much time to make that unlined jacket as it is to make a lined jacket. And the only reason I'm pointing this out to you is so many women say to me, oh, I don't want to mess with lining. I want you to see lining as a simpler process, not a more complex process. The other reason some women don't like lining is mentally they think of it as a more structured garment and they want to be more casual, they want to be more carefree, less dressed, etc., etc. And that's all up here. And that's fine. It's not a right and a wrong, but that's why they don't like lining. Another reason women don't like lining is because it's another layer. And I personally think it depends on the fabrication or what you're using in there as to what, you know, how, if the lining actually does add heat or if it does not. Okay, so lining versus lining, your call, your jacket, all of these things are your choices. But I am going to say to you that I think it's great to have both in your wardrobe. All of these things you want to think through prior to starting your jacket, and I think lots of it depends on your fabric. In this particular case of this fabric, it was stable, it just is perfect to me. It's a perfect fabric, and so to me when I see a perfect fabric, I can make a jacket out of it and not have any negatives. When you go to do a shoulder pad, you're going to cover the bottom of the shoulder pad. You don't need to cover the whole thing, just cover the bottom, because that's all that's going to show. When you take your jacket off, you'll just simply see the bottom of the shoulder pad. So just cut out, I just lay my shoulder pad on fabric, cut it around, and that's what I use as a pattern. Okay, so with an unlined jacket, you've got to think about how am I going to hem the sleeves? How am I going to hem the jacket? Because linings do all of that. And then how am I going to hold the facings in place? Because that's the role of a lining. So a lining is a finishing technique, it's either serged or lined. You usually don't serge and line. Those two things should be done separately. And if I'm going to serge, I don't line, and if I'm going to line, I don't serge. Those are both finishing techniques in the ready-to-wear world. All right, so I want to talk, gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about with jackets, and you guys feel free to ask questions because maybe that will take my mind in different directions that are all good. I want to start off with just the simplest of jackets. And so I decided to go with 1850. This is called the Quilted Jacket, and I did it in a fabric that literally was loose. This is an Italian cotton. Someone said to me in a workshop a little while ago that they thought that you all were afraid of working, and she was speaking for herself, but she felt like many others were on the same page, that she felt like you guys were afraid to work with an open fabric, that it was unstable or loose, and some are. This is not. This is a beautifully done fabric that's very stable, and I mean, it's just a beautiful jacket, and yet you can see it's really lightweight, has a beautiful selvage. So of course I'm going to take advantage of the selvage, and in this particular case I just took it and literally sewed it all the way around, down the front. The 1850 is a princess seam, so I wanted to pick a jacket that had no lining. I didn't want it to have lining. In fact, I didn't even use the front facing. When you don't use a front facing, if you understand the role of the facing is to finish off the raw edges, then I just have to come up with another way to finish those raw edges. And in this particular case, this is where the selvage was going to work perfect because it had just an absolutely beautiful selvage. So I cut it, serged it, and there's lots of different ways to sew it on. I don't even need to go over how I do it because it doesn't matter how you do it. As long as you like it and put it on to where it's finished and on there and it holds up well. All right, so then I even went crazier. You guys are going to think I'm like loony in the brain. Maybe I am. I have conceded that, especially after Mother's Day of yesterday. But we have a guy here who does buttons, and he does dyeing, and he dyed the buttons for me to match. And so I actually put them up on the website because I bought enough. I didn't buy a ton, but I bought enough that if you all wanted the buttons to match, I just had to pass it on. I just thought it was such a cool little thing that he did. Now these are like, they're horn-like. They're not actually horn, but they look like horn. I thought they were horn until he told me they were not. So on 1850, I didn't make any changes to the pattern. The only thing I made was I cut it shorter. And what I did, and it's 3 inches shorter, what I did is I actually cut it out the full length, and then when I put it on, I did the proportions, and here's my 3 inches that I cut off. So I made it 3 inches shorter, so it just is right below my rear end in the back. No pattern changes, and I cut the sleeve off shorter. Because the sleeve is kimono, it had extra room in it. So what I did is I made this little pleat in the sleeve and sewed on a button. So each of the sleeves have just a little pleat there. I just absolutely love this jacket. And then because I didn't want to put a buttonhole in a very loosely woven, I just didn't think that was a good idea. So what I did is I made a little loop here. It just goes around the button, so that way I could wear the jacket open or closed, either way. And I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. There's no shoulder pad in this garment. And this is where you're going to think I lost my rocker. But what I did is I just took in, on this fabric, the white is the warp and there's a colored weft. So I just pulled some of those strings. And you don't have to pull very many, and it doesn't have to be very long because the loop is not very long. So I decided I'd pull these, and you can see that was sewn in, but most of them come out really easily. So I pulled like 3 to a strand, and I did this 3 times, and then I braided them. And that's what made that little loop. And it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's just really beautiful. So at first I was going to use the selvage, and the selvage was a little bit heavy to do the loop with, but the braiding of that was just so beautiful, I decided that was the way to go. So you can see it's very fine, it matches perfectly, and it's just the yarns pulled out and then just braided and sewn on. I sewed it on inside over and over, but you can't see that because it's matching thread. And so literally when you put it on, I like it open, but you could close it. It's small enough that you can really wear it either way. I actually will probably wear it open, so that loop and button just really plays a minor little role there. Okay, so are we okay with that jacket? Again, the reason I used this fabric is it wasn't that you needed to use this fabric. This fabric was really representative of anything open, loosely woven. You can see that's the way the fabric looks. You can see right through it. Anything that is a sheer, any of those fabrics that are light, you don't know what to do with them. This is perfect because it has structure, it has princess seams, it has cup sizing, so it fits beautifully, but it's very simple. So it really lets the fabric talk. And then, of course, take advantage of the selvage. If you've got a fabric, in this case, that it's beautiful, use example. Now, this particular jacket has no set-in sleeve, has no shoulder pad. No shoulder pads, no set-in sleeves to this particular jacket. So just easy, it's beautiful. And because I already had the shirt and it was white and I wanted it to be spring, I went ahead and I made these little leggings to go with, because this fabric is just so beautiful together. So it's just a stretch woven, and I did a little legging, and there's a great little outfit that is just really beautiful and yet really not difficult and kind of quick to make. Okay, so then what I wanted to do is, once you had like a sheer or open weave or whatever it was, I wanted to move into knit, because knit jackets are popular, they're quick to make, they're simple, obviously they're not lined, they're just a lot of fun. And so I shopped, and where I shopped was purposely places that I knew would have pricey knit jackets. And of course, who do you come up with? The name is St. John. St. John has pricey knit jackets. They do all their own knits. None of them are lined. So, my mind was really to kind of get a very simple jacket of that nature. I'm going to move this one forward because this is my candidate. All right, so we have a stripe on the fabric is a stripe. And I saw a jacket that was very similar to this, and I just loved it. I just really fell in love with it. It was almost like a set, because the stripe was used on both parts, and it was just used a little bit differently. And I know it's going to be hard to see this, and I wish you could see it closely because it's just beautiful. It's really, really pretty. But number one, you can see that this is a navy denim. So my goal in this case, to make this little jacket, was very casual. I could go somewhere where I was going to wear jeans and just maybe look a little more polished than just jeans and a t-shirt. That's really the goal to me. So I used the navy as the facing because I made the jeans to match. I actually made the whole outfit. And it's adorable. It's just really cute. So this is, again, no pattern changes to this, except that this is a woven pattern. This is 909. It's Marita's Easy Jacket. And because it's a knit, I did a knit sleeve. So you've got to change your armhole. And then, guys, I know I'm in love with 3/4 sleeves. So I did a little 3/4 sleeve. And you can see this is terrific. I just love it. I think it's great. Now, because I had purposely meant to wear this jacket open, I wanted to wear it open. I wanted to come in. This is that little hook closure that we have. I wanted to come in with a little tank underneath, but I wanted it to kind of really play into the jacket as well. And so this is a little tank top underneath, and it is pattern 514, the 4-way tank top. And the pleats are the exact same size as the stripe. So you can see across here, I get a solid look, and I know you can't see, but you get a solid look, and there's only one white stripe that comes down the middle, and then all the blue stripes are solid across here. And then we have this brand new little fastener. I'm not even a screw head. I don't know what it's called. It's a screw, and it goes through the fabric. It's a button, but in essence, it's like a rivet, except it screws into place. The back, you actually use a little Phillips head screwdriver, and it screws into place, and it holds that way. They actually would be removable. I don't know whether you want to remove them. They're silver. They wash beautifully. But I just love the combination of the two. So the tank top was just really to kind of carry out the whole theme of this stripe, a little bit nautical with jeans especially. It's just a great look. So very simple to do, no linings. So whenever you're doing a jacket and you want it to have a knit and a casual feel, then come in with your knit armhole and use your knit sleeve as well. Make sure those two kind of work together. Okay? There's no shoulder pads. No shoulder pads. This is 909, and it's actually a blouse sleeve. So 909 being below 1,000. Everything below 1,000 is either a blouse or t-shirt. So in this particular case, 909 would be the same as like the jean jacket as far as the armhole goes. It would be a blouse. And so I just took it from a blouse to a t-shirt as far as the sleeve goes. But there was no shoulder pad in the first place. Okay? So again, what I'm trying to get to is you can wear jackets that have a very casual feel to them. No shoulder pads. You don't have to, when you think of jackets, you don't have to think of the whole dressy, go to work, fancy thing. Although, I know some of you do, and the problem is when we give the name jackets, it's a little bit too generic. And so that's where it's fun to have all these differentiations of different things we can do. Since there's no shoulder pads, did you have to do anything for the sleeve to fit? Yes, because this was a blouse sleeve, and I had to make it into a t-shirt sleeve. Blouse armhole, I'm sorry. It's a blouse armhole. I had to make it into a t-shirt armhole. So I raised the side seam up. I didn't change the angle because the angle on a blouse and a t-shirt would be the same, but I did have to raise the side seam up so that the armhole was smaller and turned into my knit armhole rather than my blouse armhole. Okay, hope that everybody understands that. Is the sleeve on 1850 jacket lapped over with a button? No, the sleeve on 1850 is a kimono. It's already a kimono. I didn't make it, I did it exactly like the pattern, but the pattern actually is a kimono. Okay, it's called Quilted Jacket, but it's a kimono. Okay, are we good there? Question? Is the collar also a knit? No, the collar is the, yes, I mean, well, yes and no. Short answer or long answer? It's a, it's our dark navy stretch denim. So it's a stretch woven, which technically is not a knit, but it does have stretch to it. You can see how much stretch there is. A lot of stretch. So this is a stretch woven on a knit. Okay. All right. Just gonna move this out of the way, and we're gonna go to this little jacket here, because these jackets are just everywhere. Like, you can't even get away from them. And this is, it's not the jean jacket, but it's like the jean jacket, but it's the double-breasted. Now what they're doing with this is they're taking the double-breasted jacket and they're purposely making it smaller on you so that you wear it open. First off, double-breasted, for many women, they don't like them. They're not necessarily flattering, but when it's done in a smaller circumference and worn open, it's a great look, and it is just everywhere. I could not do it simply because they're so popular. This particular one, I made the changes. I'll go through the changes I made. I saw it in Neiman Marcus, and it was ridiculously expensive, and I loved it. I really, really liked it, and I love what they did with the fabric switch out. So the goal here is to get two different fabrics that you like. This is one of our prints that we've got on the site, and then I combine it with a leather. And the reason I did it with a leather is theirs was with a leather also, and I liked the combination of the fabric and the leather together. It wasn't a leather jacket, it wasn't a fabric jacket, it was kind of somewhere in between. And so I just really liked that. Okay, so this is 914, and if it came all the way around, this would come to here and zip, but it doesn't, and it just, like I said, is worn open, even though it's a double-breasted jacket. Okay, so the leather portions are going to be the collar, and I changed that, so I'll show you how. Then the front and the front facing, the back, the yoke here, the back yoke, and then the center back of the jacket. Those are all going to be the leather portions. The fabric portions then are the sleeves and the side in the front and the side in the back. Now the pieces that I eliminated were the cuff and the band on the cuff, because all they had was this little leather trim at the bottom. And I mean, I just love this. I think it's such a great way to finish a sleeve. I only did them 3/4, again, because that's what the jacket was. And also, I noticed that when I did these, I used the same technique that I had done. I had kind of made a wrap last fall, and I did leather trimming all over it. I did the same thing here. So you fold the leather. I think my leather is over here. Let me grab my leather scraps. Yeah, so you fold the leather wider on one side than another. It's dark leather. I guess that was a bad idea. You fold the leather wider on one side than the other, and so then when you sew here, you sew from the front side and you for sure catch it, and then you just go in and cut off the back side. Now I've actually done that on YouTube, so you can see exactly where it is and how I did it. But if you notice, it's a very fine little great finish. It's a very rich look, because leather is just really rich looking. So it has a really nice look to it. And then I did the same with the bottom. The bottom I did twice as wide as the band. The band on this normally is 2 inches wide. I didn't want that. It looked too much like a jean jacket to me. And the one I had seen at Neiman Marcus, which I think it's helpful to see something, was narrower. So I liked that. And so I just did it. If this is a 1/2 inch in width, this is 1 inch. I'm going to measure that to see if that's really the case. No, this is like 3/4. and this is like 3/8. That makes sense. This is 3/8 and that's 3/4. All right, so this has a zipper put in. It's all styling though because it's not used because the jacket won't close, but I like it. I really like it. Okay, so the pieces that I changed were the collar. If you notice, this is just a really thin collar. Typically there's like a, you know, the jean jacket itself, the pattern has kind of a square collar, a pointed collar. So I just rounded this out. It's a little more what you see on the collars today. And of course one side had a snap, the other sides did not have a, this one did not have a snap. So I left off the cuff, the sleeve slit, I changed the collar, and I changed the band at the bottom. Everything else is just cool, cut it accordingly, went to town, sewed it up, had a great time doing it. Just fun. Easy and fun. No linings, just easy. All right. Okay, so we got some linens. When I was in New York, I found some incredible linens. No shoulder pad in that one either. Okay. I found some incredible linens, and they're Italian linens. And the beautiful thing about linen is that the better the linen, the more wrinkles it has. And you think, okay, why do I want linens? And some people, why do I want wrinkles? Some people don't. Some people just don't. They're, you know, they think of them as being higher maintenance. They think of them as being more worked, and you know, yada yada. So some people just don't want all that involved. I do. I love linens. I love them. I love the way they look. I love the vibrant color. I love everything about them. So I decided I wanted to make myself a linen jacket. And some love the linen all by itself, and they love the wrinkles, and they don't mind that they wrinkle. So everything has to be according to kind of you, your personality, what you think, what you like, what you don't like. These are all your choices. So the first thing I did is I cut off 3 yards and I washed it. Threw it in the washer with Coca-Cola because I wanted to soften it. I wanted to see if it would, and it did. And then I threw it in the dryer. And the 3 yards, washing and drying it, I ended up with 2 inches short of 3 yards. So that is such little shrinkage that when corporations have that little shrinkage, they say no shrinkage. They don't even consider that shrinkage because we didn't actually press it out to make sure that it was really less. So this is a really favorable thing about linen because a lot of linens, cheaper linens, will wash terribly. They just wash terribly. But anyway, so I washed and dried this so that we could go for it. So this is pattern number 1912. And I hadn't made it for a while. This is an Ellie Tahari jacket. It's the one that has the double collar, the little zipper thing. And I did this the whole way. And that meant I fused the linen first off. So if you go inside the jacket, I mean, it's lined, but if you go inside the lining, the back side of this is black because I have fused the whole entire thing. So I fused the fashion fabric because for me, personally, heat doesn't bother me as much as wrinkles. I don't like wrinkles more than I mind the heat because I travel, and if I don't fuse linen, for me, I can't even use it because it's so high maintenance, and I can't look like I just got out of a suitcase when I wear it. So I choose fusible over the lining, it's over the fabric itself. I do have in some brand new stretch linings, and that's actually what I used on the inside. It's stretch lining. They're very cool, and I don't have those up yet. I'll have them up later on. Okay, so back to the linen. This jacket is 100% jacket. It's shoulder pad, it's structure, it's lined, it's fused, all of those things. And when you compare the weight of the jacket, you know, clearly we're at night and day between these two, and yet they still call them both a jacket. And so they are. But when you hear jackets, I just don't want you to shut down and think of one thing, because there's so many different things we can do with jackets. And there can be some really flattering things that we do. All right, I want to go back to this jacket for a minute. I did not make any changes in the pattern at all. The only change I made was I made a 3/4 sleeve, because I think for me, a summer jacket looks more summery with 3/4 sleeves. So I love the look of a 3/4 sleeve. And linen is not going to be worn in the winter, so it's no big deal to wear it. I did change the pattern to a 1/2 inch shoulder pad. So, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the differences. I mean, besides the size, obviously. But I use a 1/2 inch shoulder pad when it's a lighter fabric. Linen is a very light fabric in and of itself. And so it doesn't make the shoulder pad smaller than what it is. So a lot of times if a fabric is heavier, I'll use a 1 inch shoulder pad. You can't visually tell a difference in the look, but the end result is the fabric going to compact the shoulder pad a little more, so it enters in my choice of whether I use a 1/2 inch or a 1 inch. The look of itself is not any different. All right, so then what I do is you're going to change the angle of the shoulder, because you have to look on the back of the pattern and see what the pattern calls for. If it calls for 1 inch, you've got to drop it down a 1/2 inch in the front and a 1/2 inch in the back, and then you've got to cut off the top of the sleeve cap. So the sleeve cap, again, you reduce by a 1/2 inch, and you trim it up, use your French curve to kind of reduce it down. So in this particular case, I changed the angle of the shoulder, but instead of restoring the sleeve to where I wanted it to be, I wanted the sleeve to be smaller, and so I cut off the top of the sleeve cap, and I absolutely love my jacket. The thing about sewing with linen is a very precise fabric. Is that fair? You're going to see if you don't, like on the welts, if you don't, get those welts evenly at the right place, they'll pucker, and it's really not possible to iron out a pucker on a linen, okay? And knit, you can get away with it all day long, but on a woven, you can't. So that's when I was sewing this jacket, is when I was thinking about, you just got to enjoy the journey, and you can't rush it, because it would not be fun to sew a jacket with a deadline like that, because you couldn't enjoy the whole thing about the jacket. And I was loving it so much, the whole process of sewing it, that I definitely enjoyed the journey. And I needed a new jacket. Yeah, right. Now, y'all are tired of seeing me in the same jacket when I go to workshops. I had a lady say to me, I saw you in that jacket last year. I just love that jacket. And I thought, oh, great. I need some new jackets. I need some new favorites that I can wear and feel comfortable with. So I did fuse this one again so that I could travel with it, and it'd be easier to travel with. It wouldn't wrinkle excessively. Okay, using a darker shade, would you recommend a special interfacing? No, I just used a black interfacing. It's just black inside. There's only two. The industry basically uses only black and white. You wouldn't use white, because if for any reason the linen started to spread a little bit and you saw something underneath it, you wouldn't want the white to come through, because it would be more recognizable. You'd want the black to come through. So in the medium tones, you always want to use a black in general, not a white. What fabric do you recommend if I use lining? Well, I've got these stretch linings, and honestly, I don't know what fabric they are yet. A lot of the new linings are polyester, but they're such a beautiful polyester, they're breathable. And when I say that, you got to remember that wick-away shirts are 100% polyester, so they are making this polyester breathable now, and it's beautiful. This particular lining that I used, it's so easy to work with. It's just really, really nice, and it stretches. But again, I don't actually know the content. So just when I put it up, watch the content. But if you are one who is hot, you like a jacket and you want a lined jacket, because there's nothing prettier than a lined jacket to me. I mean, they're just beautiful. Go to silk. There's some real inexpensive silks you can find, and do the silk for the lining. And I think that's a real nice compatibility for that. Is there a rule when you line a jacket and when you don't? No, it's completely your choice. Lining a jacket is completely the structure. It has nothing to do with the fabric. That would have more to do with fusible. There's absolutely no choice except for yours. I have a jacket that I'm making. Hold on one second. It's actually for Thursday, and I haven't got it finished yet. But this is the fabric. So this is a Chanel. And so what I decided to do is I really wanted it to have a Chanel look to it. And if you notice in Chanel's jackets, a lot of times when they do a summer jacket, it's always got a black in it, and they always pair it with black. So I was pairing it with a little, and they always pair it with black leather. So I was pairing it with a little black leather. But in this jacket, I'm just showing you how to do a couple things. I specifically am not fusing it, and I'm not lining it. Now, when I do those two things, when I make those two decisions of no fusing and no lining, this jacket is not going to have the life of this jacket, because this jacket is going, the fusible and the lining, it makes the fabric stronger, more stable, where this is just not going to live that long. It's just not, it's going to look more worn faster. Okay? But this particular jacket is literally going to be like, I'm just going to throw it on with jeans, and I wanted it to have a really kind of raggedy look. Even though it's Chanel, and even though jackets, you know, can cost a lot of money, but I wanted them to have a really raggedy look. I also think about jackets, and you know, I don't think there's anything that we sew that is more cost saving than jackets, because jackets are the most expensive piece that we put on our bodies. And you know, there's always the argument, do I save money when I sew, do I not, do you know, and I don't know that we need to make the argument, or we need an answer to the argument. But if you feel like you're after an answer to save money, jackets are definitely the road to travel, because they are so expensive in the stores to get a nice quality jacket. And even you can pay a lot of money and they don't fit well, and they don't make them well. The fusible is in spots rather than fusing the whole thing. It's just a world of difference. I can't go back to buying jackets simply because they're just made so poorly. Just anyway, did you fuse the sleeves or just the body? I am a big believer that if you're going to fuse, you fuse everything. Ready to wear will fuse parts, and I would strongly recommend against that. It changes the fabric. So when I fuse, I'm going to fuse every fashion fabric piece, including the welts. The welts are also fused. The only thing I don't fuse is the pocket behind, because it's not necessary to fuse that. So it's all fused. Collars, facings, sleeves. I did the whole thing. Did you say on a previous webcast that you don't use heat when drying any fabrics, just air dry? Correct. I threw it in the washer in cold water, and then I put it in the dryer with just air. And it was a very quick process, an easy process. And I was really surprised that it shrunk like nothing. That really surprised me. But now, because I did that, I've got a jacket that's linen that I can throw in the washer and throw in the dryer. And that was my goal, keep it low maintenance. How many skins were required for the 914 jacket? One. Just one. And that's another reason why I used just a smaller trim, was I wanted to be able to get it out of one skin. I mean, you could use two. I think it's always nice to have trim, personally. Your front and your front facing were took up the most space, and then your yokes. And then your trims I just used out of scraps, and I pieced this on the back. Okay? Alright, so generally questions about jackets. What was that one? How much of the sleeve cap did you know to cut off? 1/2 inch. The difference of what you're reducing, what's in the pattern versus what you're using. So the pattern called for a 1 inch shoulder pad, and I used a 1/2 inch shoulder pad. So I took a 1/2 inch off the cap height, tapered it to nothing front and back. Okay? How did you manage the difference in weight between the leather and the knit on jacket 914? This is actually not a knit, this is a woven. But is that what you're asking for, 914? Yeah. How did you keep the heavier leather from pulling or rolling the knit at the seams? Well, you guys, different weights of fabric work very well together. I mean, I've seen Ellie Chahari use leather and knit all the time together. It's not that it's the weight of the fabric, it just has to be sewn correctly. So, but this is a woven, just to clarify, this is not a knit. This is a knit. But you shouldn't have it should not be an issue. I think it's fun to play with different weights, because I think the garments that I see that I like the most have something definitely kind of yin yang about them, and a lot of times it is the texture of the fabrics and the weight of the fabrics, and they work very well together, but they have to be sewn correctly. All right. Can you talk about how the swing dress is supposed to fit? The armholes on my muslin are so low that my bra shows through on a sleeveless version. Are they supposed to have a very loose fit? No. Well, yes. That's short answer, long answer. The swing dress is supposed to fit how you envision it to fit. You know, you bought this pattern. Why did you buy this pattern? What did you have in your mind when you bought the pattern? For me personally, I envision it as a dress that is knit, that comes in under the bust, and then is an A-line as it goes back out. I see it in all kinds of knits. I see it as a short tunic with leggings. I see it as a really quick, easy to sew knit garment that can be dressy or casual depending on the fabric. But again, I see it as being negative ease. So at the bust, negative ease, coming in a little bit under the bust and then flaring back out at the bottom. That's how I see it. But that doesn't mean that that's what your vision is, if that's fair. Okay? That was my intention for it. But when you all ask questions like, can it be done in a woven, you know, we start to get different visions, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? All right, we're good? We're good. All right, we have had fun. I've had a lot of fun. And I have some beautiful jackets to wear for summer that I really needed. What's that? As a general rule, do you fuse knits? No, never, ever, ever. Never fuse knits. If you fuse a knit, it can't be used as a knit. You can fuse a knit if you don't want to use it as a knit. I fuse a knit if I'm going to use it as a jacket on, if I don't rely on the stretch, but the fuse, you can't fuse a fabric and then expect it to stretch. Okay, the fusing is for, and we have an article on why to fuse. And the main reasons you're going to fuse is to stabilize something loosely woven, to retard wrinkling, to add body, and to a sheer if you don't want it to be a sheer anymore. Those are the reasons. How much fabric for the first jacket, 1850 with a button? I'm sorry, I need to read the question. Do you use a couple inches of interfacing to the hems and sleeves and bottom jackets for a crisper look? That is a very ready-to-wear thing to do, where they only fuse portions, and that's just to save money. If I'm going to fuse, if the fabric needs the fusible, if that's the look I want, I'm going to fuse the whole thing. And I appreciate that. I had kind of forgotten. That's exactly the mindset of me that they do in ready-to-wear that I don't like. When you fuse just the hems, and they do that, they do it all the time, just to give it more drape. I just think it's a real, and Armani does it, to be honest, but I just think it's a cheap look. If you're going to do it, do the whole thing. And there's advantages to doing the whole thing because the whole thing will have more stability, more body. So no, I don't, it's called spot fusing. I don't spot fuse, but you're welcome to if you feel like that's what you want to do. I just don't really care for it. All right, are we good with questions? Diana Carey, thank you guys. All right, we will see you in, what are we going to do? I know. In 2 weeks, it's Memorial Day. So we're gonna see you next week. I'm making that executive decision right here and now. We're going to see you next Monday, and then we'll skip 2 Mondays because Memorial Day, we don't want to be here. You all don't want to be here. So next week, we're going to do summer dresses, and I had some ideas and some things I've already done that I was kind of waiting for a webcast. And so summer dresses is what we're going to do next week. Next Monday, we'll put it up on the webcast just like that. So in 1 week, we'll have a webcast, and then we'll skip to go to the next time. Okay? All right, please show the back of 914. I did. All right, there you go. All right, we'll see you next week. Next Monday. Good night. Happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns. Bye.